everyone, it's Melody Snowflake, and welcome to another character analysis video. I really did not expect to do this many, but Danganronpa is just packed filled with interesting characters, and I just can't seem to stop talking about them. So today, we're going to be discussing a character from V3 named Maki Harukawa, who's actually one of my favorite characters of both V3 and the series as a whole, and in general. But, like always, all biases aside, we're just going to be talking about her character and what's actually told to us in the canon, and just kind of figure her out from there. Before you continue, I'd just like to say that there will in fact be spoilers for V3 as a whole for this one, because Maki plays quite an important role in the story, so if you haven't finished V3, I'd suggest you click away until you've finished it so that you wouldn't get spoiled. Without further ado, let's get straight into the character analysis. Maki Harukawa, she's introduced to us as the ultimate child caregiver, though something just kind of felt off about that from the start. And later we find out that that was actually just a ruse because she didn't want anyone to know her real talent. Why? Was she trying to secretly hide in the shadows as an assassin and threaten everyone without their knowledge? No, that's not it at all. She also always seems to come across as cold and distant, especially at the beginning, but she gets character development later on, which I personally feel has been overlooked a lot whenever people talk about Maki, at least from what I've seen. So let's go over her life from her childhood to the end of V3 and talk about her journey, who she is, and why she has made the choices she's made in life. At least in terms of her fabricated past, because we all know Samugi wrote everyone's pasts. So, Maki Harukawa, she grew up in an orphanage and never knew her parents. She had to take care of all the younger kids as she got older because at the orphanage, the older kids took care of the younger ones. This orphanage that she was in was sponsored by this group. I honestly don't even remember their name, but this group tends to come to the orphanage a lot, and it's the group that keeps the orphanage running and that keeps funding it. They come to the orphanage to look for natural talents because this group is in charge of an assassin business or something along those lines. So, kinda shady to pick up young kids from an orphanage to recruit them into being an assassin, but that's kinda how it worked. So, one day, these people came to the orphanage and tried to figure out which child they should recruit next. Maki had a really close friend at the orphanage who she had a feeling was going to be their next target, but she also knew how sensitive this friend was and didn't want her to get hurt, so she volunteered to go instead when the time came. Training for her was difficult as an assassin. She vomited every day and cried every night, and she wondered why she had to kill these strangers when she actually started killing. At first, it was really tough. Training was hard, being an assassin was hard, and yet eventually it just kind of became a way she had to live. She learned to adapt to the lifestyle and just kind of grew numb to everything. Of course, that didn't mean that in any way she liked the fact that she had to kill people. If she stopped her job, the orphanage would no longer receive funding, and that would just, be the end of the only home she'd ever known. So the reason Maki continues being an assassin despite hating it so much is so that the orphanage she was at would continue receiving funding, and also because she at first did this to protect one of her friends. Sometimes being an assassin was hard for her. In fact, another friend of hers had to be killed by her as a result. That was rough, and Maki is somebody who is really attached to the people she cares about, as proven by the fact that she was willing to become an assassin to protect one of her closest friends, and continue being an assassin despite not liking it, to keep the orphanage running. So it must have been tough for her to kill one of her friends, but by that point she was probably numb to it and just kind of got herself to adapt to the mindset that it was okay. This all went on until she found herself in the Ultimate Academy of Gifted Juveniles. Throughout her life and teenage years, people who knew about her talent would often feel scared, and to protect themselves, assuming she was going to kill them, they would try to kill her. As a result, she adopted the ruse that she wasn't an assassin and told everyone at the Ultimate Academy that she was the ultimate child caregiver instead, talking all about the days, the good old days, when she used to take care of the kids at the orphanage. In fact, when you spend free time with Maki, she reminisces about those days fondly. Even though she said she didn't really like taking care of the kids, she still liked being at the orphanage and playing with her friends, and especially with her best friend. It's also stated in her free time event how she's helped the girl who was her best friend to not become an assassin. Unfortunately, her best friend ended up dying, but in some other unrelated cause, not related to Maki being an assassin. But she still continued being an assassin anyway because, well, one, there was no backing out, and two, if she did back out, her only home would stop receiving funding, and that would be really bad. And she didn't want that. So Maki, despite not liking what she did, continued to do it because of the people and places she loved. Now, how do we know that Maki doesn't actually like being an assassin? I mean, her catchphrase is literally, "Do you want to die?" And every time something happens in the game that seems kind of threatening in any way, she looks like she's about to literally murder somebody. So, what makes me think Maki doesn't actually like killing? It's because during her free times with Shuichi, she confides in him that she actually wants to stop this and do something else, but she can't get out of it. And if you spend extra time with her during Dangan's Salmon team and during their graduation event, Shuichi also tells her that he promises that he will find a way and work hard as a detective so that cases would be so hard to make mysterious that assassins just couldn't work as a career anymore, that basically it wouldn't do any good to be an assassin. Shuichi and Maki had this conversation in their final free time event, but it was expanded upon in the final graduation event of Dangan's Salmon team, where they talked about how Maki didn't want to continue being an assassin, but she didn't know if there was a way to even get out of it, and she had kind of accepted her fate. And Shuichi saying he'll do whatever he can to make sure she had no choice but to stop being an assassin. This is why, despite how Maki seems to act whenever things got a bit crazy in the game, she doesn't actually like killing. She only does it because it was her job as an assassin, and she, has to keep going if her orphanage was going to receive funding. Now, moving on to the events of the game, now that we've established Maki's personality and what she thinks and who she is. At first, she hides her identity from everyone, and for the first 2 chapters seems really cold and distant. This is because she doesn't want to get close to anyone and get hurt, because as we see later on, she is obviously scared that if people found out the truth about her, they were going to try and kill her. I mean, she had good reason to be scared. It is a killing game after all. And even though she can definitely defend herself, no matter how strong you are, someone trying to kill you isn't fun. Also, someone hating you isn't fun either. Maki also reveals to us during the game that she feels like a horrible person for killing. And Kaito himself said to Maki that she didn't think she deserved friends, did she? But over the course of the game, Kaito believed in Maki. He brought her into the group and introduced her as, their friend. Told them that she didn't mean them any harm. And Maki at first was very, very reluctant to go with Kaito's idea. She was all like, "No, I don't want to do this. I'd rather just, avoid you guys, and you can avoid me, and that's all we're gonna do." But eventually, Maki, Shuichi, and Kaito started bonding. This is because Kaito started getting Shuichi and Maki to train with him every night, even though Kaito kinda didn't really actually train, more like kinda coach them on. But it worked, because the 3 of them started bonding. In fact, I like to joke with my friend FireArt and say that they are the Harry, Ron, and Hermione of V3, because, this trio is pretty iconic to me. Anyway, Maki started training, and by the end of this 3rd trial, she said to everyone that she was going to prove hard to prove to them that they could trust her, because no one trusted her up till the 3rd trial. And in the end, she did end up helping Shuichi solve the case by explaining methods of death and stuff when they were investigating. After the 3rd trial, Maki became a lot more open, and we learned all this stuff about her past. We even learn about the first time she tried to carry out an actual assassin mission and why she doesn't like using swords. It's because of a bad experience with a katana and everything. It was actually pretty cute seeing that little flashback. There's a picture of young Maki with a katana, and people thinking she was actually cosplaying, and she'd get in trouble if she was found out. But yeah, Maki doesn't like using swords, and we learn about that in chapter 4. Also, later in chapter 4, Maki opens up about the rest of her past, and we can see that she's grown to trust everyone, at least the people who have always been there for her, Shuichi and Kaito. I wouldn't say everyone, but she's trying to get everyone to believe in her. Trying. She's still distant sometimes, but she's a lot more open, and she actively helps and participates in investigations and just random daily tasks, honestly. During chapters 3 and 4, Maki also showed that she cared for people a lot. And yeah, it's probably one of those caring for you in secret but not openly showing it kind of characters. But as the chapters go on, she actually becomes a lot more open with that, which I actually don't see people noticing about her. She started worrying about Kaito when he got sick and started disappearing, and at the very end of chapter 3 even told him that if he doesn't like scary stuff, he should just tell them, and she was clearly concerned for him. And in chapter 4, we see even more of that as she tries to console Shuichi about Kaede and, asked him personal questions about it in a very, meaningful, sentimental, and gentle way. And then we have chapter 5, the chapter that I'm pretty sure a lot of people are kind of mad at Maki about, especially if you are a hardcore Kokichi Oma fan and you are, you're really sad about what happened. Personally, I'm a huge fan of both Kokichi and Maki, and I don't hold what happened against them at all, because I understand exactly why each character did what they did, and I don't blame either of them. If you want to see my take on Kokichi's actions, I did make a Kokichi Oma analysis video a little while back, so you can go check that out. I'll link it in the description. But an update from that point, I was actually, back then I said that Kokichi was my 6th favorite character in V3. I take that back. He is actually my 1st favorite character in V3 now, along with Maki. So anyway, back to Maki herself. Speaking of her, what happened in chapter 5 was actually pretty intense. So in chapter 5, everyone was trying to, find a way to stop the crazy killing game because they had basically enough of it. So they wanted to fight Monokuma. But when they tried to fight Monokuma, Kokichi showed up with an electro bomb and said he was going to kill everyone. Maki, obviously feeling threatened and that her friends were going to be threatened, decided that, that she had to fight back. So she attacked Kokichi, which was the second time she did so, because the first time was when he outed her as an assassin back at the end of chapter 2. Now, Maki has kind of attacked Kokichi quite a few times, which is why I can understand why a lot of Kokichi fans don't like her, but personally, Maki felt threatened. She doesn't know what Kokichi is about, and from her perspective, he was just this evil gremlin person trying to, make life difficult for everybody and basically do things that would hurt her. Such as outing her as an assassin and, trying to quote-unquote kill them and all that. So obviously, she felt like she had to do something about it. Backtracking a little, ever since Maki became an assassin, she's been afraid of people finding out the truth about her talent. This is because when people find out, they feel threatened by her and try to kill her, thinking that she is going to kill them. So, feeling threatened and afraid, she kills them as a defense. I mean, obviously, as an assassin, she's trained to kill, and therefore that's the best way of defense she knows. So that's kind of what she does to defend herself whenever she feels threatened. And Kokichi is no exception to that. When he first outed her as an assassin, for example, she felt threatened by him because he was going to reveal her secret to everyone, and because of him, at least in her perspective, everyone was going to hate her and try to kill her. And like we mentioned earlier, no matter how strong you are, some people trying to kill you isn't fun. In fact, it's terrifying. So obviously she felt threatened by Kokichi, and what does Maki do when she's threatened? She attacks. So that's why she attacked Kokichi at that time. Same goes for the second time that we were just talking about with the electro bomb, because she thought Kokichi was going to kill her and their friends. So, danger, time to attack. She also attacked Kokichi when she felt like he was going to take Kaito away. After the whole finding out the truth about the outside world thing, and that whole big fight happened. But of course Kokichi got away with that. Maki just kinda gave up at this point because they were all super depressed after learning the truth about the outside world. But later, a flashback light appeared out of nowhere. And, they suddenly remembered that they were students of Hope's Peak Academy and all that. Also, there was a false memory in their minds about Kokichi being a remnant of despair. And in fact, not just any remnant of despair, the leader of the remnants of despair. This caused Maki, who already felt threatened by Kokichi by everything he's done so far, to want to defeat him once and for all. After all, he still had the man she loved trapped in the hangar. We learned that she fell in love with Kaito later on because, he gave her that. He was really nice to her, he gave her a really cute nickname, and he just was always believing in her and trusting her and making her feel like, not trash because she felt like a horrible person, as mentioned earlier. So, Kokichi had that person stuck in the in the hangar. And so Maki went into an exisal with poison arrows to defeat Kokichi once and for all. Remember, in her mind, he is pure evil, a remnant of despair, and he's already caused them so much destruction so far. So, why would this be any different? He was already, a remnant of despair, and he already claimed to be the mastermind. So, it should be a good thing that she defeated him and saved Kaito. So that's exactly why Maki rode the exisal into the hangar and shot the poison arrows. And when Kaito seemingly died instead of Kokichi because of some unexpected circumstances, she still had the drive to take him down, which is exactly why she tried to take him down in the trial with everyone else. She has been so, used to death that she was able to convince herself that, this was a worthwhile sacrifice to take down Kokichi in exchange of every one of their lives. Of course, eventually things didn't turn out that way, and everyone found out the truth about Kokichi, both in this trial and the next trial, as they found out more things. And eventually, Maki grew to accept that. She grew to accept that Kokichi wasn't as bad as he wanted everyone to think he was, that whole villain persona and everything. But, she, for the majority of the game, she thought he was bad, and that's why she was always literally at his throat. But by the end of the game, she finally understood, and with her, Shuichi, and Himiko being one of the only 3 survivors left by the end, she decided to move forward in life despite everything she's lost. She went through a lot. She lost Kaito, and and her best friend from the orphanage, and she just found out that her entire past and trauma was fabricated because she was totally not traumatized by anything at all. Totally not having to witness a lot of blood and vomiting and crying until you got numb to it. Yeah, totally not trauma. But, even if it's not trauma in the typical sense, it's still some form of trauma. And by typical sense, I mean like flashbacks and stuff. But, yeah, Maki still decided that she wanted to move forward and, make the most of everything. So in conclusion, Maki Harukawa is actually a very caring person, but she doesn't openly show it for fear of, for one thing, she didn't feel like she deserved friends because she was an assassin, and for another, she was worried about people finding out the truth about her, because if they did, they'd want to kill her. If anyone ever did find out the truth about her, or if she felt threatened in any other way by then, the best way she knew how to defend herself was by killing. She says, "Do you want to die?" a lot as a defense as well, without actually killing anyone yet. But that's probably just a direct result of her whole killing to defend thing. It's just kind of like a threat to scare them away. And, eventually it also became an inside joke between her and Shuichi, which is great. And, that's basically it. She also cares about the people she loves a lot, like mentioned earlier, to the point where she's willing to go to great lengths for them. and she can be vulnerable around people she's close to. Oh, and she's also pretty sentimental, because when she talks about her past, you can tell that she's reminiscing and seems to really like it. And if you spend time with her in her love hotel scene, actually, she also starts getting really emotional and sentimental and sweet and loving, and she actually literally loves you like family, because in the love hotel fantasy, you basically grew up with Maki, and you know, she loves you a lot, and not just for looks, like she stated. She's a very genuine person, I would say. And even though she's numb to killing, she's not numb to anything else. She just doesn't express her emotions as much, especially not around people she's not close to or she doesn't trust. But when she does get close to someone, it's a real gem to actually have someone so loyal around. So thank you so much for watching my video about Maki Harukawa. I really hope you enjoyed it. Of course, if you have a different interpretation, that's perfectly okay. That's understandable, but this is just my take on her character. If you want to see my take on Kokichi Oma, I have a link in the description to my video about that. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this one. And without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye!